Hi, Dr. Ish.
Hey, Tiffany, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing very well.
Good. Thank you for joining. Thank you for saying yes to having such an important conversation with me
Of
and
course.
our audience. So, just to get started, it's Happy Free Pre-Friday. We are also the last Thursday of Domestic Violence Awareness Month,
Yeah.
and an important conversation to have. And outside of this month, continuing to do the work, but inclusive of doing the work, feel that it's very important to also have the men's perspective and to have a conversation with men that are doing the work and that can encourage other men. So what if a lot of people may not know, my husband and I have been following you in marriage boot camp for years. Okay. The assignments are just simply amazing. And so outside of marriage boot camp, you are on America's Top Psychiatrist for 3 years, number three for the past couple years.
Yep. Yep.
Definitely, you've been on a lot of TV shows as the subject matter expert. You've been doing the work for the past 10 years to make sure that you demystify the male psyche, along with helping couples in relationships. So you've been doing this. So I, again, say thank you. This past season of Marriage Boot Camp, though, you definitely shared why domestic violence was so near and dear to you. So I would take, if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes to share how domestic violence has impacted you and why you're so passionate about seeing couples and individuals be so successful.
Yeah, it's well, thank you for that. It matters to me. I am one of seven. I grew up with five sisters, eight aunts. My mom and dad were together for 56 years before she passed away, but um, I was what my mom would call the knee baby, right?
Mhm.
So I got a baby sister, but I was the knee baby. So I'm the baby on the knee while she's got my little sister in her arm.
Okay.
And I was a nosy little brother, and I was an aggravating little kid. And so when my sisters they got company over, and I'm peeking around the corner trying to see trying to see if I can listen in or see what they're doing. Or, back in the day, my aunts, they would have what they call quilting bees, right? Where they would all pick somebody's house, and they would all go over, all the ladies in the neighborhood would come over, and they would sit and they would literally sew a quilt that day.
Yeah.
And so I'm the little kid crawling around under the table, getting all the little juicy gossip that they're talking about. And so I've seen what happens when it goes really, really well, and then I also have seen what happens when it goes really, really poorly. So I was privy to some of those conversations that a lot of guys don't get to listen in on, right?
Okay.
And a couple of my sisters, but one in particular, she kind of lived through this trauma for the better part of her life. Um, so the thing that people don't understand is how it affects everybody else around you.
Hmm.
It's not just the you and me of it, right?
Yeah.
That leaves a weight. There's unfinished emotional business it's going to leave for your kids when that happens. There's unfinished emotional business that's going to leave for the people around whoever's suffering through it, who feel like they can't protect them, right? It's more than just you and her and her, or him and him, or however your situation is.
Hmm.
Uh, and unless you've lived that, unless you've kind of felt that, I felt that helpless feeling as being the little brother who sees it's wrong, but you can't. There's nothing you can do. You feel like there's nothing you can do to fix it, and so it matters. It matters to me, because I've seen what that looks like up close, and it's hard.
Yeah. So for those that may have joined that may not know my story, so I grew up in all domestic violence. I'm the baby. My parents were married for 30 years, and there was domestic violence the majority of the marriage. So I saw it from the age of 7 until 17, not even factoring in how and when my siblings first started witnessing it, but from my mom sharing throughout getting older and her healing process. It actually started in high school. They were married straight out of high school. So I've gone down that work and doing the work. And like you said, the trauma of it being an adverse childhood experience and a lot of those learned behaviors, if you don't do the work, that you may think is normalized. And a lot of times we keep seeing it being perpetuated generationally after generationally. So for when it comes to men, it says that the stats are that boys that witness this that grow up in it, if unaddressed, then they tend to be perpetrators of it, that they tend to be model what they saw from unhealthy, being able to unresolved, healthy communication. And it's just continuing generationally. And that is actually how my father learned it, is because there was domestic violence with my grandparents. So this was a learned behavior. So first off, what do you say to some of the men or boys or teens, some early prevention, if there's a parent that may be listening who survived and got out, but their son saw it, their children saw it actually, how to not pick men that models that behavior, and two, for men to not replicate those behaviors that they saw.
Yeah. So that's really the question, right? We're talking about how do we stop the generational cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think kids do how you are, right? And what little boys need to understand is that it's okay to feel stuff too. The first thing that happens is we program them wrong, right? Little boys are programmed entirely differently socially by parents as opposed to how little girls are, right? Think of the difference. Think if you got a 5-year-old girl and a 5-year-old boy, right? Twins, one boy, one girl. They both fall. They both skin their knee. What do you do to the boy? What do you say to him? Oh, pick it up. Shake it off, son. Walk it
Yeah.
off. It's not that bad. Just brush it off. We're gonna put something on it and you're gonna be fine. It's not bad at all. Don't worry about it. Keep pushing. Don't think about it. Don't feel it at all. Shut it down, push it away somewhere, and keep on pushing forward. But the little girl, you handle her entirely differently, right? Oh my goodness, are you okay? Oh, I'm so sorry that happened. How are you feeling? It's a whole different thing. Here's a pretty Band-Aid with some butterflies on it. Let me put that on to make it okay. In that moment, you're teaching her how to process through those hard, difficult emotions. Whereas for the little boy, it's like, okay, I guess it's not cool to be a little boy and feel stuff, so I don't have to think about it. I'll just keep it pushing. So now take that same scenario, and now you got those same two kids watching mom and dad fight. And so the little girl's going to understand this isn't cool. This doesn't feel good. And she's going to go through that process. How do I feel about this and why? Whereas the little boy's going to say, must be just what it is. Must just be the way it is, right? That's what dads do. I'm not supposed to feel stuff. Clearly, he's not feeling stuff because he's going upside her head. Must just be the way it is, right? And so what we got to understand is that kids live what they learn. So if that's what we see, then that's what we think is our normal. That's our baseline, right? If you grew up in a zoo, then you're going to think seeing lions and tigers and bears every day is normal, right?
Yeah.
It's like part of my family grew up in Brooklyn. And then those of us who grew up in South Carolina, we kind of moved down south. But whenever our cousins would come down from Brooklyn to visit, they would be amazed at this stuff that was all over the ground. They were like, is this grass? Like, yeah, it's grass. You know what I mean? Because it's all concrete in the city, right? And they're like, you can walk on it, you can sit on it. This is amazing. And to us, it's like, it's just grass. The grass was our new normal, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just what it is. So if you grow up in an emotionally violent household, in a household that even just displays a lot of emotion, maybe they're not physically hitting each other, but maybe they just yell a lot, right? Maybe there's a lot of expressed emotion and people don't really know where to put it, then you think that's normal unless somebody's able to sit you down and process with you and say, hey, you know what? I know this is all that you see, but that's not all that there is, right? This isn't the way it should be done. This is the way we do it, partly because we don't know any other way, right? And we just don't have the tools. So it takes a level of vulnerability to sit your child down and say, hey, I'm your parent. I love you, but don't do everything you see me do.
Yeah.
Because everything I do isn't doing it the right way. And we've got to be able to have that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you say to maybe the boy? I've had some conversations with actually men where we know that a lot of our older selves, if unaddressed trauma from our younger selves, it kind of shows up in the adult versions of us. So what do you say to the man that feels shame that he couldn't stop his mom from being abused? What do you say to the man who feels like, you know, I can't talk about, or I can't go back and address that trauma because there's some guilt there because I wasn't able to save my mom or help a woman that's close in my family go through this.
Yep. Yep. Well, we've all got that thing that we're pretending not to know about ourselves, right? And the minute you're able to say that thing out loud is the minute you're able to heal some of those unhealed childhood wounds and move forward. So shame is a big part of the abuse culture, right? It's the shame that I couldn't save him. It's the shame I couldn't protect this. The shame I was too small. I was too young. I was too little. I didn't know what to do, right? And so when you swallow that kind of shame as a child, might come out as an adult. It will come out as an adult. It's only a matter of what avenue of your life and how badly it's going to affect you, whether it's work, whether it's relationships, whether it's your money, whatever that is, but it's coming out. And so you got to understand the shame is the thing that keeps you stuck. The shame is the thing that makes you want to hide away in the closet. And domestic violence is one of those rare things that it grows in the dark. And so you've got to be able to talk about it. You've got to be able to shine a light on it. And so for those guys who grew up feeling that shame, the other thing they also feel, Tiffany, is powerless. Right?
Yeah.
I wasn't, right? What's the thing when we think about all of our super heroes and our action heroes, we think about guys like The Rock and, you know, our Supermans, they're big, strong dudes who can get stuff done, right? And so I wasn't that, so I was powerless in that situation. I am somehow less than, and for a guy, I am somehow less than a man, so now I am subconsciously going to find and look for ways where I can show up and prove to people that I'm man enough, right? And so we're going to have this over-masculinized energy in this area where that's going to help us be more aggressive, be more outspoken, and it's just not, it just doesn't serve you, right? That's a part of having masculine energy, but that's not the bigger part. The bigger part of having masculine energy is knowing when to apply the gas and when to apply the brake.
Yeah, that's good. So you have, which leads us to one of your quotes that you have said that I wrote down from the show, is if you can't master your emotions, you can't master your life. There are instances as well where not only are men the majority of the time when it comes to domestic violence cases, because stats have proven the main aggressor, but women can also be aggressive to men, some physical and verbal, where men say they're provoked. And that was one of the things you challenged this season as well. It is that you cannot go there regardless if that wrong is wrong, but you have to control your emotions. What are some recommendations to de-escalate?
Yeah, so that's really good, right? So it's because it's a cycle of violence, and it's not just a cycle between one person, right? We're both playing a part in this cycle, right? There's the escalation, there's the explosion, and then there's the honeymoon, right? Where everybody's got to play their part. If one person doesn't play their part, then we don't have a cycle of violence. And so one of the saddest things that I've ever seen was with a patient I had, young sister girl, 27 years old, beautiful, own job, actually went to college, had her own car, own place, you know, decent credit, everything was in her name, and she had a live-in boyfriend. And so I would see her every Monday, and every Monday she would have a new bruise somewhere on her face because they had got into it over the weekend, right? So he was one of those guys, you hear the story so often it becomes cliche, right? He's driving her car, drops her off at her job, then he takes her car back to her crib, and he spends the day watching Jerry Springer or hustling, doing whatever that looks like, right? And so I asked her, I was like, I'm never going to blame the victim, but I do want to understand what it is about you that feels like this is okay for now, right? And so I was like, listen, your situation is very different from the situation of a lot of women in this situation, right? Whereas you have a family who is supportive. You still have that connection, right? You have financial means, right? You are controlling those things. It's your car, it's your crib, it's your job. You know, what is it about you that tells you that he's the guy you deserve and this is what you need to do for right now, right? And so, Tiffany, the thing about it is we all have our needs, whatever those personal needs are. We got 6 basic ones, but we all have those needs, and we'll all do whatever we got to do to get that need met. So she looked at me and she said, Doc, you know, that's a good question. And the only thing I can tell you is, for me, if there's a week where he shows up and doesn't hit me, how do I know he still loves me?
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so in the absence of the connection you want, you settle for the connection that's there. And a lot of times an angry, hurtful connection, even though that's not the connection you want, is better than no connection at all, right? And so if you're somebody who was taught by the world, hey, maybe you don't deserve the whole cake. Maybe you just need to settle for these crumbs that are over here, right? Maybe if you're somebody who grew up seeing women not getting the love how they want it, but getting a hard love, a harsh love, a hurtful love, a battered, bruised love, then in your mind, that's normal, right? And so if all you've ever done is walk on concrete, when you get to grass, you're like, this feels weird. I don't know what to do with this, right? And so that's when your brain starts playing tricks on you, right? Because you're now you're in the cycle. You're in the mixer. Now you're saying, hey, you know what? It's Friday night, 8 o'clock. He's had a couple of drinks. I've had a long week. Both of our frustration tolerance are down to 0. This is about the time where we usually start to fight. And so let's go ahead and make that happen, right? We are creatures of habit. We want the thing to happen so that we know what comes next. And if we know what comes next, we feel like our life makes sense. Even though it may be hurtful, it's predictable. Mm-hmm. And that with that certainty comes a little peace of mind. Okay, yeah, 9 o'clock, he's going to start hitting me by about 9:30. That means I have some level of control over my life. And so if that doesn't happen on a Friday, a lot of times what I will see is subconsciously, unconsciously, people will do things to provoke that and make that happen because you know it's coming. You know it's coming. It's only a matter of time. So let me try to gain a measure of certainty, which is a basic human need. Let me try to gain a measure of control by being the one who makes that happen. And at least it's happening on my time and not his time. It's weird how that works.
Wow. Okay. So on the other side of that, thank you for answering that. On the other side of that, if I know that I didn't cause anything, I'm just coming in from a day, like if I'm a guy and I just want to love on my girl and she's all the way on 20 and she's throwing stuff at me. And I don't want to go there. I don't want her to meet that other side of me, but it's rising and then now it comes out. What are do you just walk out? Do you? Well,
as a man, it can't come out, right? It can't. I'm from a different time, right? So I grew up and I was taught it's never okay. Now.
Yeah.
Part of their program. They're like, if you're throwing insults, I'm going to throw insults back. If you're throwing hands, I'm going to throw hands back. And that's how that's working. So I totally get that. But I think for me, you've got to have a standard. And that standard has to say, this is who I am. This is how I go forth and feel good about myself the way I show up in the world, right? We can never do especially as brothers and sisters out there, we can never do the thing that's going to diminish us, right? There is a million things that you're going to go through this week that's going to serve to diminish you all on their own. You can never be the one to show up and do the thing that diminishes you in your own eyes. So you got to have a standard. Hey, in order for me to feel good about myself, I need to not do this, this, and this, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, crossing the line to violence against your woman needs to be one of those things. So if she's on 20 and you're coming home and you ask her, what is it you want, right? What do you need from me right now? You need something. What is it you want? What do you need? Did I screw something up? Okay, guess what? I get it. I'm sorry. I love you. What can I do to make it better?
Yeah.
Well, because you always do it. Every single time. And I told you about those text messages. I know. I screwed up again. I'm sorry, but I love you. What can I do to make it better? I'm getting so tired of you and your stuff. I'm not your mother. What? I know. I'm sorry, but I love you. What can I do to make it better? 3 times. Say it 3 times in a row. If that doesn't de-escalate it after you've gone through that 3 times in a row, then you're going to have to leave that room. You're going to have to leave that house. You're going to have to get some physical distance so you guys can get some emotional distance, because now this is not on you, right? Yeah. This is something she's dealing with. This is on her, and you're going to have to let her figure that out. You know, a lot of times we think because we love somebody that we're responsible for fixing their stuff. You can't fix their stuff. You can't, right? Yeah. You can love them while they work on it on their own. All you can do is point it out. Hey, you know what? You're very upset, and I get that some of that's probably on me. I'm asking you what I can do to help fix it, and we can't come up with an answer. So that tells me I need to remove myself from the situation right now, right? And I'm going to come back. I'm not leaving you. I love you. I'm here with you, and I'm going to come back once this cools down a little bit, so we can actually talk about it. And it's because I don't want to do this. You know what I mean? And in every situation, typically somebody's got to be the hero. Somebody's got to be the emotional leader. A lot of times we look to women, you guys, to do it, but sometimes in that situation, you're our guy. So you are going to be less emotional in that situation. So use that to your advantage. Hey, you know what? This is an emotional situation, and it doesn't need to be, because I see that escalating quickly and getting out of hand. And guess what? Once somebody calls cops, all bets are off. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
I don't care whose house it is. I don't care who you are in that house. It could be your house, your mortgage, your license tag on the back of your car. Cops come to the door, you're the threat.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah, that's good. What are your thoughts on what happens here stays here?
What do you mean?
So in growing up in a lot of, and I'll just say for me, it was a lot of the abuse. You can't talk about it. Don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. You're not supposed to share. A lot of that, to me, that statement holds a lot of bondage into getting free when you do become an adult and you can talk about it through a licensed counselor. And when there is someone who it may be going through it, or someone who's living in a household, maybe a teen that's witnessing it, they don't feel that they can talk to anybody about it. They can't talk to anyone where they feel they can share and get that help and resources. So if I am a man or a woman and I open up about it, our culture has been, that's none of my business. That what happens in your house stays in that house. But where do you break that loyalty to that statement when it comes to being able to hold offenders accountable? Because a lot of times their friends may know they're doing this, right. And also helping the victim get help.
Right. Safely. Yeah, you can't be loyal. You can't be loyal to an idea that's not loyal to you, right? And you know it's not loyal to you because it doesn't make you feel good. I know this is not right. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. I know I don't want to do this. So how do I get some help? And so you've got to realize it's okay to tell somebody. Domestic violence. This is a culture built on shame, right? Don't talk about it. Don't tell anybody about it. We're gonna hide it away. We're gonna put it in the closet, and we're just gonna hopefully it'll go away. And in that closet, it's going to grow into the Incredible Hulk, and it's always going to be there. And so the only way to get out of it is to shine a light on it. You have to. You got to tell somebody about it. You've got to talk to somebody about it. You have to. And whether it starts with just talking to somebody who might just, they may not have an answer, but you say, hey, man, this is what's going on. It kind of, it messes with my head some weeks, I don't know what to do about it. Maybe just saying it out loud. Every time you speak it out loud, it gets a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. But again, you got to understand, you're not going to be able to fix it for them. So if this is what you're seeing, you're not going to really be able to talk to them about it because they don't know no better. If they knew how to do it better without the abuse part, they would, right?
Right.
So if that's what they're doing, that tells you, okay, that's not something. I can't fix it for them, and I probably can't talk to them about it because they don't know another way because it's the way they show up and always do it. And so you've got to be willing to be vulnerable enough to reach out to somebody and say, this is something that's going on. I don't understand it. It hurts me, and I don't know what to do about it. A lot of times in the community, it's going to start with at the church, it'll start with a pastor or something like that. Here's what I would tell you about that. Your pastor is not your therapist. Right? So great. That's a first step. That's a great initial conversation to have, and you're sharing it, but that's just the first step, right? You got to do more than that for sure.
Agree. I'm smiling because I feel the same exact way. Unfortunately, my father is a preacher.
Yeah.
So you dealt with a lot of that culture within there of secrecy and bad theology.
Right.
God hates divorce.
Yep.
Submit. And God wants you to go through this when he doesn't.
Yep.
So that also points to that church leaders, today's new church, also needs to get trained upon knowing what the signs are, knowing how to effectively connect with resources, no one's asking the church to be the rescuer, but you should be
Right.
connected with your community advocates that
Yeah.
if a congregant comes to you, you know what to do and have the process and procedures in
Right.
place.
You got it. You got it. I want you to
So,
go. Here's a number. Call them up and go talk to them about it. And, because a pastor's right. They're going to help you with your faith, and they're going to help you stay plugged in and tuned. That they're going to keep you believing while you go over here and work through some of those issues. You got to do that. You got to do both things. Yeah.
yeah, which leads to my next question. That kind of adds on to both of these is that counseling. I know in the church space, a lot of it is you guys just need to go to counseling. There may be someone that's like, hey, we're not married yet, but we just need to go to counseling. It'll fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I have my personal thoughts, but one of the things that I saw this past season that you did when the domestic violence happened on the show is you separated. So can you give me your thoughts or give the thoughts to someone who may be listening that may think counseling is a quick fix? If we go together, this will resolve it.
Yeah, I think you've got to, the thing about counseling is whether it's premarital or marital, you've got to I always set the expectation, right? And as soon as they walk through the door, I'm like, all right, before anybody says anything, what you need to understand is my job is not to keep y'all together. That's not the job. The job is to give you both enough information about each other that y'all can make an informed decision. Is this the person who I want to go through the next 10 to 20 years rocking with or not, right? And that's it. And it's hard, right? It's hard to find that person. It's hard to connect with that person. You kind of got them to commit. All right, now this could be the thing because there's not a lot of choices, especially for the sisters out there. It's just not, because sisters, out of every other woman on the planet, black women are the ones who are least likely to date or marry outside of their race, right? And so it becomes if you're all looking for us, by the time we're 21, half of us are dead or in jail, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a very limited pool, right? And so now, of the half of us who are alive and breathing and still kicking, some of us are married, right? Some of us are not heterosexual and we're not interested in women. Some of us are bisexual and ain't telling. And some of us are just straight up crazy. You can't deal with us anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So when you find somebody who might sort of kind of be it, you kind of want to make that the one. So we get stuck into that, so women get stuck into that cycle of potential. Well, he could be, look, okay, all right. Hey, he's not tall, dark, and handsome. He don't have no good job. Matter of fact, he got no money. He got no manners. Hate his mama. Got a couple of baby mamas over here. I think he likes to get violent because, and he might be a cheater. But other than that, Tiffany girl, perfect.
Run.
Right? And so right, but that's not on him. I'm not telling him. He is who he is.
Yeah.
It is incumbent upon you to say, hey, you know what? I do want to be with somebody, but I'm not to the point where I feel like I need to settle, right? Because I think I deserve more than that. And that's really, again, what is your standard that you got for you? Not for your girlfriends, not for your Instagram posts, not for your co-workers. What is that standard you have for you? This is how I want to show up in the world, and this is who I want to be able to show up with, right? So don't get stuck. That big word potential tricks more women out of joy than anything else, right? Because women are nurturers by nature. You want to take that bird with the broken wing, you want to bandage it up, and you want to feed it, and then you want to see it fly high, and you hope that it's going to fly back to you. But that's just not how it works.
So true. In my book, I wrote about kind of this whole journey of the impact and the trauma and the healing aspect. And one of the things that you touched on it was that I was a bad picker. So I'm saying men are trash. They're this, they're that. But then once I got into counseling, it's like, oh no, you're picking. And a lot of it was I was uninformed. I knew I didn't want the physical abuse that my mom was receiving, but I didn't know the other components of domestic violence. Right. And one of the activities that you do every season that I absolutely adore is the childhood, where you have them paint a picture, write about the like childhood memories like that disturbed you the most, and then you guys bring in the younger versions of themselves. I cry every season, every season. It's just a thing, because I feel like, what if that person knew that about you before you got excuse me, as deep as you got? It would be so game changing. How does someone sorry, how does someone in the beginning of their dating stage, instead of looking at what's your credit score, what's your salary amount, all those things are important, your looks, all, I get it, but that's where I kept getting superficial results. But when I finally started asking the hard questions, tell me about your childhood, tell me about your parents, how did you heal from that? That was the game changer in how I chose and was chosen by my healthy husband now. So can you kind of talk to that?
Yeah. So Tiffany, what you're saying is you got to a point where you were ready to be really vulnerable in that process, right?
Yeah.
Because that's me showing you all of who I am now, right?
Yeah.
I saw somebody in the comments saying that tears them up. Yeah, that tears me up every season. You're crying at home, and I'm crying all day, because the first half of that day we're getting the stories, and the second half of that day we're getting the younger versions of themselves, and so what we're talking about are unhealed childhood wounds, right? And some of those wounds we know about and we lock it in the closet. Some of those wounds we don't realize they were wounds until they manifest in our life in a dysfunctional way, you know?
Yeah.
And so this is the level of vulnerability you're able to share in your relationship is directly proportional to the level of happiness and connection and love and belonging you're going to get out of it, right? You got to show at some point, you're going to have to trust somebody enough to show them all of who you are, right? And so we're not just sexy, smart, and funny. We're also traumatized, broken, and unhealed in some way, right? And all of it's okay. All of it's okay, but that's that old phrase. When you buy a new car, you got to kick all the tires, right? Well, you gotta know what you got, and a lot of times that's a hard conversation, because we all have our masks. I don't care who you are. You put on a mask before you leave the house every single day. As Black folks, we are masters at putting on that mask and suiting up and putting on that suit of armor, and it gets so heavy.
Yeah.
And it's so much to put on, till when we get back home, some days it's just easier to leave it on. You know what I mean? Because there's hurt out there, and I come home and there's more hurt here. So I'm just going to leave it on, and I'm just not going to let anything get to me, right? Which means I'm not going to share anything either. And so you got to be willing to ask those questions, right? We've all got those things that shaped us into who we are. And so you've got to be willing to ask the question, and you've got to create a space to have that conversation. And the way to create that space is by you going first, saying, hey, you know what? Let me tell you some stuff about me that I think you probably won't need to know, because this informs a lot of how I show up in life, right? If you've noticed, for example, I'm a very safety conscious person, right? Safety is like my number one thing. OCD like a champ. Just safety. Is it safe, or what am I, right? I'm locked. I need to get this room locked down before I walk into this room, right? Safety. Well, I was a scrawny little kid who was always sick growing up, right? So I never knew in any given situation, am I going to be okay in here or not? Can I do this or not? Do I feel well enough to do this or not? So that's a big thing for me. And so for anybody who I'm with, I'm like, hey, there's some things you need to understand about me. I am not paranoid, but safety is a priority for me, because it's something I felt like I didn't have when I was a kid because of my health and all this kind of stuff. So what are those things that you need to share? And it's something you need to share because it's usually the thing that makes you shame. You know, oh, my daddy didn't graduate high school. That makes me shame. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, that's the thing you need to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Because now I understand why you're so focused on education. Got it. That makes sense. That checks out. Oh, you saw your mom get horribly belittled and diminished and ridiculed and made to feel like she was this big. So that's why I understand now why you're always texting me 20 times a day and you're always wanting to know where I am, because you saw her go through some stuff. That checks out. That makes sense. That helps me understand you. That helps me not to take it personally. I know you don't think it's me, right? Oh, I saw my mom that she had boyfriend after boyfriend and they all cheated. Ah, I get it. So that's why you never want me to go out with the guys and you always want to know what woman is this who I'm talking. I get it. It's not about me. It's about the thing you learned when you were a kid, right? And so on the opposite of that, until you're able to have that conversation, you got to have patience enough to ask your partner. In those situations, you got to ask that one question. What else could it be, right? Does Tiffany really think I'm cheating that much? Or could it be something else? What else could this be, right?
Yeah.
Could it
Yeah.
be that she was hurt before and now she's really, really scared of having that come back again, right? Because 9 times out of 10, the thing your partner is doing to you don't have nothing to do with you and everything to do with them.
Yeah, that's good. When I first got married, so we're going on 6 years being married. My
Ah,
husband got a
congratulations.
thank you. So my husband got a healed whole wife. However, there were new triggers that I did not know.
Right.
So as we're having different conversations, I'm being triggered. And he would pull me out and like, what's happening here? What's going on here? And I was like, can we go back to my counselor? And we would do a session together. And my counselor was able to say, well, Tiffany, it seems like how you're responding to AJ is based upon what your father would do in the home. And it would be a light bulb like, oh. And so then, but I'm also blessed to have a partner that's doing the work with me. He's like, okay, I'll change my tone up here, or I will phrase it with a disclaimer here so that brings you down so that you don't hear dad. And we went through that. So as you went through the say it 3 times, we kind of went through that on our own. So that was good. What do you recommend to women? Because vulnerability is the key for a successful relationship and for not just women to be vulnerable, men to be vulnerable. And a lot of times our men don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable because a lot of times society says you got to take it in, take your head, keep ticking. Like you don't need to talk about that. What are some tips you can give to women to be safe spaces to listen to our men, to be able to foster when they're sharing their hearts, not looking like, oh, you weak or get over that, but to allow them to also open up to get into those soft spaces that they have as well?
Hey, you soft, you corny, can't do it. I need a roughneck. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, as Black folks, a lot of the stuff we do to ourselves, we have very antiquated ideas of what femininity and masculinity are supposed to look like, right? Because we just don't have very good models. We got stuff we see on TV, and then we're overly masculinized, and or we're 7 feet tall and 300 pounds, and running up and down a football field, right?
Yeah.
Or she's in a music video and it's swoopers and it's got to be overly sexualized. So we've got to understand that it's okay to be somewhere in between that, right? That's the human thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need. You can be all of who you are, and it's okay. So for any dynamic, somebody's got to be the emotional leader. A lot of times that's going to be the woman, but sometimes it's not. And that part of that leadership is going to be able to let your partner know not only what they mean to you, but at some point you got to sit them down and let them know the things that you value about them. Hey, you know what? I do value your strength, but not in the way you think, right? You come in and you can move furniture, and that's great. That's amazing, right? And that's very manly. But the thing that I find strongest about you is your emotional strength, right? Your spiritual strength, how you're able to feel stuff and then use that feeling to push you farther for the next day, right? Let them know that, right? Any guy, we're going to be very, very happy with you as long as we know 2 things: why you need us and how we can make you happy. But we also need to know that there's stuff about me that you desire. There's stuff about me that you want, right? We want to be wanted too. So let me know what those things are, right? And like any thing women got to understand about guys is, we're really like grown-up versions of our 5-year-old self, right? And so when we were 5 years old and we bring that little horrible birthday card made with macaroni to our mom and like, hey, right? Right? Because she was the most important woman in our life. And if she did the job right, she took it and she put it up on a wall and she wasn't embarrassed by it. She act like it was a Gauguin picture, you know what I mean? Like it was like worth $1 million. And so now you're our most important woman, right? And so we want, what's the thing I can bring to you and present to you that will allow you to tell me that you're proud of me?
Yeah.
And that I did a good job, right? And so
Yeah.
let me know what are those things. Oh, my spirituality, great. I can lead with that, right? Now I know that's something you value. I'm going to show you more of that, right? People will give you more what you reward them for. So when he's doing the things that you really dig, that emotional strength, I love how you think through problems and you don't get too emotional and you think about computer. Right, cool. You like that about me. Okay, I'm going to give you some more of that, right? And so let him know what else you value about him, not just the traditional stuff. You're going to value that too. He's big and strong and sexy and, and your protector. Value that too. And let him know that you also value the other thing. So now you allow him to be more than just one thing, more than just one note, he can play more than just one song with you, right?
Yeah.
And then and then now he should turn around and do the same thing for you. Yes, I value your vagina, and there's a lot more that I value as well. You know what I mean? I value your softness, your sensitivity. I value how nurturing you are. What are those? You're so loving. You're patient. All of those things, because we've got to allow ourselves to be a whole human, right? One of the knocks that Black folks have against Hollywood is, well, we all get the same roles, right? Either we're the sassy, smart talking sister girl, best friend, or we're the hustler in the street who's trying to, who's street smart, right? And it's just one note every single movie, every single show. That, yeah, okay, there's nuance to us. We are that. We can be that, and we can be a whole lot of other things, right? And so the first, right, they can't show that unless we feel comfortable showing it to each other first. And so that starts with you. That starts with the person you're talking to in the mirror.
Yeah, that's good. I received a question for you. Any advice
Aloha.
for?
Somebody says aloha.
Okay.
Hey, aloha, Kim. How you doing? 808.
Any advice for the singles waiting for the right guy?
Yeah, be patient. Okay, you're waiting for the right guy. Here's my advice for the single woman waiting on the right guy. I want you to get very, very comfortable dating yourself. I want you to get very, very comfortable being your own best friend. I want you to get very comfortable enjoying your own company, right? Because if you can't identify those things that you enjoy about you, why would you expect anybody else to show up and be able to identify those things in you, right? And so get very comfortable doing that. Set a standard, if not standards, for what you're willing to accept and not willing to accept. No matter if you've been single for 3 months or 3 years, because the longer it goes, seems like the lower those standards get. It's like, well, you know what? He breathing. Let's see what else. I can take him shopping and we can work some things out. Don't do it. Don't do it, right? Don't be confused by potential. Understand the difference between a prospect and a project, and understand that you're worth being happy to, right? And just because it ain't happening today doesn't mean it's not ever going to happen. You're single for now, not forever, right? And so value those things about you. Don't hide that light under a basket, and expect the good, right? Don't expect the worst. Don't expect him to be a player. Don't expect him to be, to cheat on you. Don't expect him to be non-committed. Right? Expect the worst, and people will give that to you, because the guy who's ready to show up and whose light is on, and he's ready to show you that he's that guy, right? Yeah. So walk in the door, set your expectations. Hey, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm looking for. Can you meet that asking price or not? And if he can meet it, he's going to prove it to you. And if he's not with it, then you'll know in the next few weeks for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I went through that process too. Again, after you go through bad picking after bad picking, you're like, I'm tired of arts and crafts projects. I know what I'm worth.
Right.
I didn't get through this trauma that I've been carrying and showing up in the boardrooms. I'm good. And that is when my blessing came as well. So I see someone else in the comments said that they did that too, and they're going on 16 years of marriage.
There you go. 16 years.
Yes.
Congratulations. Because once you know what you won't accept, then the selection process gets a whole lot easier, because you don't get distracted with this knucklehead over here for 6 months and with this one over here for another 9 months. All the while, the guy for you is in the background like, I'm over here. I'm over here. I'm over, trying to wave you down. Can't you see me? I'm right here. Well, you can't see it because you're stuck with the knucklehead you're trying to make into what it is. I heard Just Tola on the show one season say something that I never forget. She was like, You get the guy you pick, not the guy he could be. Period. And that goes both ways. You get the person you pick. That's who they are. The person who they are today, let's assume that's who they're always going to be. Let's assume that, right? And if you're cool with that, then go with it. But if you're not, it's really not fair to you, Tiffany, to come to the table and say, you know what, Tiffany, you're right, but I'm going to need you to do this, this, and this, right? Because now what I'm really telling you is who you are isn't enough for me, and I need you to be more. And at that moment, I have got you stuck in a cycle of hustling for your happiness with me, and you are never going to be happy because you're never going to feel like, is it enough? You're always going to be asking yourself the question, is it enough today? Am I enough today? And you don't want to be with anybody. You got to wake up and ask yourself that question every morning.
Yeah, in my book, I put, what you compromise to keep, you'll eventually lose. And I kept compromising. And the minute I stopped, exactly the example you gave, my now husband, he was my friend for 3 years prior. In the background while I'm compromising with knuckleheads.
Right. He's back there like, can you see it? Well, not yet. Okay. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So another comment, as we wrap up, I feel someone said, thank you for keep directing this to the Black community because we act like we don't know, is that I'm glad to see the stigma of counseling and mental health is starting to end. But a lot of times that our Black community, we feel like we were raised, I remember specifically in the early 90s being raised on counseling is for crazy people. Something must be wrong with you if you go to counseling. So a lot of your activities, that's why I watch the show so much, because it reminds me of my counselor, the drilling and doing the work. And a lot of men that I've talked to, a lot of women are starting to embrace it, but a lot of men still don't want to kind of go to counseling. They're like, I'm trying to do some martial arts. Oh, I'll work it out myself. What are some final thoughts on encouraging our Black community to embrace that counseling process, embrace doing that work?
Yeah. So what if I told you that if you went to see a counselor every Friday for 4 weeks in a row, at the end of that, I would give you $1 million, a 6,000 square foot house, and a Benz. Would you do it?
Yeah.
Most of them, yep, sign me up, right? So I think some of the bigger barriers are we don't know how useful it's going to be, right? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to share my pain with you. What do I get, right? We kind of want to guarantee on the back end, and you're going to give me what? Well, we don't really have those deliverables, but it's a work in progress, right? And so the other thing is with our antiquated ideas of what we think it means to be a man, what we think it means to be a woman, what we think it means to be Black. What does it mean to be Black? Well, that means I got to be tough, and this world is hard, and I got to be able to get through it, and I got to be able to carry my load, and I also got to be able to carry your load, because some days I know you're not going to be able to carry it. And what that also means is we don't want to share our burdens with each other, right? Think about how many times you've had a conversation with a girlfriend, guy friend, and it's like, hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm all right. No eye contact, no follow-up questions. Because a lot of times we really don't want to know the answer, right? Because if you're not okay, then that means I'm probably not okay either. I might not even be able to help you get okay. And so now we're both just stuck. So let me just leave the suit of armor on and keep it on right here. And so what I would tell you that the biggest part of your strength, right? As strong as you are on the surface, right? As strong as your mask game is, as strong as you know, the bigger part of your strength lies in the vulnerability that you're able to show beneath the surface, right? And the more vulnerable you're able to be, then the more you can show who you're supposed to be in this world, right? This is the whole point is self-acceptance, right? Mm-hmm. I can never accept all of who I am if there are parts of me that I'm pretending not to know about. I can never accept all of who I am if there are parts of me that I am still ashamed of, right? And so therapy helps you get okay with who you are. It helps you to not feel ashamed because there's nothing to feel ashamed about. We all got stuff. And the person who's walking around here who you think don't have stuff, they got the most stuff. They're just the best at hiding it, right? That's just what it is. So you got to understand that, right? This ain't about anybody else. This is about you being able to show up and live as wholehearted a life as possible and get some joy and some peace and some happiness. And that starts with being able to accept all of who you are. You may not like all of it, right? And you're not going to like all of it. And there are going to be some things you want to work on and change, but that doesn't mean you get to cut that part of you off. You're going to have, first thing is to accept all of it and say, okay, this is what it is. This is how this is how I operate. This is why. This is some of the things that were taught to me as a kid. And now I can figure out which ones, what of those things were true and what of those things were just not true at all. And this is what helps me to move forward, right? And you all got, what is it I want in life, right? How do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What are those things I can do to help me show up fully for me and for the people I love? And therapy is just one of those things. It just is. It really is.
Yeah. And even though my husband's amazing, I still have my counselor.
Right. Right.
I have my best girlfriend.
Right.
I still have my counselor.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
they're going to be Team Tiff no
right.
matter what. And
right.
yes, they may challenge, but I may not want to hear them. I may think it's biased, or I may be triggered or think it is an attack that day. Where I know with my counselor, no, they mean the best for me, and that there's no hidden agenda in here, no hidden motive, and they're going to tell me the truth whether I like it or not.
Right. They're not there for manipulation. There's no secondary gain. The biggest thing a counselor will do is reflect back to you what they see. Right? Because a lot of the thing that keeps us stuck is we don't know we're doing it. Oh, I didn't know I sound obnoxious when I say this to you. I didn't know that you feel emasculated when I say that thing to you or when I do that thing. So the biggest thing a good counselor our therapists will always do is reflect back to you exactly what it is they're seeing when it comes to your mood, your tone, your body language. This is how you are showing up. Let me just make you aware that this is how you're showing up in that moment. If this is what I'm seeing here, I can only imagine what your partner, your best friend, your coworkers are seeing there. So and if that's not giving you what you want, now we can work on some ways to help adjust that.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is just becoming aware of how you work. You know what I mean? So you can go work more efficiently.
Yes. I love it. I love it. This has been so good. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. How can those who are on follow you? I know you've had different ebooks. You have some courses that you're doing along with the show.
Yep. Got a lot of stuff going on. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on, for sure. Everybody, I am very accessible. Just go to follow me on the gram, Dr. Ish Major, Dr_ISH_MAJOR. Go to my website, drishmajor.com. Same name. Got a bunch of cool free stuff we do there. The couples compatibility quiz that we give to every couple on the show is on the website for free. Download it, take it, do it, have some fun, learn something new about your partner who you've already been with for 8 years. You're like, oh, I didn't know that about you. So do that. Got a take-home boot camp you can do there and kind of work through some of those core issues that get us into trouble when it comes to communication and trust and cheating and forgiveness, and some of the same things we work through on the show. And stay tuned. Got some cool stuff coming up as well. But do that and look out for my Monday videos where I take a fan question or a question from you guys and just try to answer it every Monday and get a lot of good feedback on that too.
Awesome. We're one last question. I just want this. This is a very important question. Where do you go to find the right counselor? That's a great question.
That's a good question. Yeah, I love psychologytoday.com. Okay, you go to psychologytoday.com. They have a therapy finder on there. You put in your zip code. They will pull up a list of people, of therapists, psychologists, social workers, licensed mental health counselors, psychiatrists in your area, whatever that radius is you put in there, and you will have their picture, you will have their bio, you will have what they specialize in, right? Finding a good counselor is like finding your partner, is finding your soulmate. You're going to have to date a few before you find the right one, right? So call them up, see if you have a connection over the phone, and you can schedule an appointment. Schedule a 30-minute consult. Hey, we just going to see. This is us meeting for coffee. You know what I mean? And we're going to see if we vibe. And if you feel like the person these days on the other end of that Zoom or video call, if you see them in person, if you feel like if they make you feel seen, heard, and understood, then you found the counselor. But if you feel like, I don't know if they really get me, or I feel like there were some certain things I needed to understand, to over-explain about me, well, then that's not your person. And so it's okay to say, hey, doc, you know what? Thank you for the consult, and we're going to keep it pushing, and we'll find some other folks. You know what I mean? So no, you don't want to waste time with a counselor who you don't feel like who truly sees and gets you. And no counselor wants to have you there feeling like you are not totally seen and heard and understood, right? Nobody's winning there, right? And so it's okay to see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 appointments, but you'll know when you find it, because you're like, oh yeah, they got it, and now you feel very comfortable sharing and being vulnerable. So that's how you know you found the one. But don't be afraid to see a few different people to get that done first.
Yeah, I went through 3 different counselors
Yeah.
before I landed on my forever counselor.
Right.
So
right. You got it.
Yeah, it's
right.
perfectly normal if the first one you don't gel with.
Perfectly normal. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just a matter of goodness of fit. You want to go till you get to the right fit, because you're going to be sharing some heavy stuff. You know what I mean? You don't want to have any distance or uncomfortableness sitting in the room with you.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Ish. Have a great rest of
Pleasure.
your evening.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and chiming in, and have a great rest of your week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tiffany.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.